Hi, this is Betsy Bell with How Can This Happen? One thing I want you to think about today, in terms of what I'm going to talk about, is it doesn't matter whether we are right or wrong. What matters is if we can stand up for what we believe. If we sit and moan and groan and tell ourselves, this is horrible, how can this happen? But we don't do anything about it. And by that, I mean, I can give you some pointers as to what I think we could do about how can this happen. One thing that comes to mind is the way that people are being treated today. Okay, here's what my example is. My example is that the mayor of New York City was, um, okay, yeah, I forgot the words. Okay, the mayor of New York City had an encounter with the FBI the other day, and the FBI came up to him and said that they had a subpoena to take all of his devices, his phone, his iPad, all of this. Okay, well, that happens. So we see it from time to time. We have not, however, seen this happen to a Democrat. I'm sorry. It hasn't. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Now, I heard the wailing and the gnashing of teeth on TV about somebody saying, well, you can't cry that it's a two-tier justice system because only the R's are getting arrested. And by the way, the mayor of New York is a D. Well, he is only one D out of how many Republicans? I'm going to tell you. So we haven't seen any D's get arrested, only R's. I will provide closure on the R's in a minute. But here is a story about Mayor Adams that you need to know. He was a former police officer in New York. He ran for mayor and he won. He had nothing but praise to give to the government and the president about immigration. Immigration policies are great. We're saying to all migrants, come to New York. We're going to give you whatever you need. We're going to house you. We're going to feed you. We're going to pay for everything. Come on in. So the immigrants came in busloads to New York City. Now, all of a sudden, you're overwhelmed. They have more immigrants than they can handle. The hotels are overflowing. There's vandalism. There's too many of them. Then all of a sudden, Mayor Adams is like, this is a catastrophe. How am I going to deal with this? In the last month, over 100,000 immigrants went to New York City. Well, it's a big place, but it ain't that big. Yeah, it's an island with 8 million people. But to say that they can handle 100,000 aliens coming into the city, not feasible. So homelessness and crime is rampant. And Adams states the problem is with President Biden because this is his policy. His policy is to open the border, and everyone says to you, little person out there, thinking that you're a big person because you have the right to vote, but whatever you vote for isn't getting done. So President Biden says, the border's open, come on in. We're a nation of humanity. That word is being misused. And no, that is not the definition of humanity. So that is why they took Adams' gadgets because, and don't kid yourself, he mocked the president and did it on social media. So are we becoming a police state? You better stop and think about it. The reason for confiscating his devices is they discovered that with his campaign for mayor, he had a fundraiser. The fundraiser got money from Turkey. So that's money that's coming into a mayoral race that's from a foreign country. Where have we heard that before? Well, I'm afraid that the irony of this whole confiscation of the devices, because they haven't arrested him yet, probably is coming next, who knows, is that Congress is about to shake out a whole investigation of Biden getting checks from his family, and that's as a, quote, repayment of a loan. So the Biden family has all these accounts. They have all these corporations. It's all a big money thing that most people don't understand, and I can't understand it either. And it's not the point. The point is that this mayor of New York City doesn't like the way that Biden is handling immigration. But he took the matter into his hands and said, I'm going to object to this. And he did it on social media. Well, now all of a sudden, he's going to pay a price for that. I'm sorry if I don't see it, but I just don't. Okay, that's because, after all, there is one Democrat and there's not just one Republican. This is what happened. Okay, there were more than 1,033 rioters at the Capitol on July 6th. These were the rioters, quote unquote, not the protesters. We're not allowed to say that people who support Donald Trump are just followers of Trump. No, they're deplorable and they're rioters. So there were hundreds of thousands of them on January 6th, and they went after 1,033 of them, and they arrested them. Quote, the rioters, with approximately 485 federal defendants receiving sentences. Most of them rotted in jail for over a year before they even brought them to trial. But you have to understand, this is a federal crime. If you walk into the Capitol and stand on the steps of the Capitol, you're going to jail because you're a rioter. About 277 defendants have been sentenced to time behind bars, and roughly 113 defendants have been sentenced to a period of home detention. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the longest sentence is Stuart Rhodes, who was an oath keeper. He founded it, and he got 18 years for his seditious conspiracy. I don't know anything about seditious conspiracy, but I do think this whole thing is seditious. I've never heard of these people having to go to jail for this. They were trespassing. Yeah. Did anyone get killed? Yeah. One guy died, one woman died, and then one woman who was unarmed got shot. If you don't think this matters, I think that you need to think about this again. Because this is an ongoing threat to your freedom. These people are taking away your freedom. Now, if you want to go into the Capitol and protest the Palestinians and say that you're pro-Hamas, they don't arrest you. They don't call you a rioter. They don't get you for seditious conspiracy. Really? But you're supporting a terror organization. Okay, whatever. Now, I call those people Hamas sympathizers because that is what they are. You can stand all over the Capitol building and you can scream, from the river to the sea, and you want everybody in Israel to die, but that's not seditious, and it is not meaning that you're a rioter. If you don't think that we are in the middle of a police state, I hate to tell you, we are. We're in the middle of a police state. And we are not allowed to go against the people that are in power. That is what this segment is about. You can't go against the people that are running this show. And it is a shit show, I hate to tell you. It is. Rampant crime, rampant immigration problems, you name it. So, we do not live in a state of freedom, not anymore. But what you don't get is you're accepting it, and because you are accepting it and becoming compliant with it, it's going to continue. We have to stand up and say what we believe, even if people say we're wrong. We don't have to prove it because they're not proving it. But if you think that not saying it means that you're just going to stay safe in your little cocoon, I hate to tell you, but you're wrong. You also don't get the fact that we're like a bunch of frogs. They throw us into a big pot of water and put us on the stove. Then they light the stove, and guess what? The frogs boil to death because they didn't even know they were hot. Okay. Time to break this up because this is a little heavy for you guys. Now, when I come back, I'm going to explore how far away all of our leaders are, no matter which ones they are, talking about how the further away they are as a leader, the less chance we have of them understanding who we are. Stick around for that. Welcome back to How Can This Happen? I'm Betsy Bell. I want to talk to you today about the Pope because he is the one that proves my point. The higher up you go, the less you know about us, the little people. You are so far out of the equation of everyday life. You don't know how to relate to anyone anymore. You're too far past us. The Pope, or Sancta Papa, as he is called in Italy, has been a wealth of knowledge on many subjects. Just so you know, he is familiar and comments constantly about certain ideologue subjects, one being climate change. Now, climate change is going to end the world. You do know that, right? Okay, I have a bridge in Seattle I'm going to sell you if you buy that. The world is going to end because of climate change. I beg to disagree. Folks, ask Mother Nature. She'll give you a clue. The Pope is head of the church, the vicar of Christ, and as such is infallible. But only on doctrines of the church. The Bible talks extensively about the end times, but it never touches the subject of climate. So that is why it seems like it's kind of out of place to hear a pope who is the vicar of Christ talk about climate change. He's very liberal, and he needs to be a voice for what seems to me the voices that have become louder and louder in recent years. Those are the voices that are pro-life. Those are the voices that understand the need for civil unions for gay marriages. Those are the voices that don't understand transgenderism, because I don't think anyone understands it. But those are not the issues that are affecting the Catholic Church. But Pope Francis doesn't know that. He's too far out of the loop. He doesn't get it. He wants to make sure that we all come together to support these groups. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't know a transgender person. You may, and I get it. Of course, I've run across gays, and gays are very good people, and they believe in Jesus Christ as well. But that is not the problem we're facing. Just once, I would love to hear the Pope say how everyone can return to the church and why everyone should return to the church. Why not? We are a Judeo-Christian nation. There are billions of Catholics around the world, but in recent years, they don't go to church anymore. And why is that? Is it because our leadership is dividing us into camps of climate change and not climate change, abortion and not abortion? Yes, that is the reason. But what we want them to know is the church welcomes you back with open arms. I want the world to know that the church itself is not innocent. But we need to keep the commandments and make church a haven for sinners to pray and ask for forgiveness. And that's all he has to tell you, because he's the vicar of Christ. If he wants to talk about whether or not Joe Biden should be allowed to have communion, he needs to do it in private. We don't need to know that. That doesn't mean that just because Joe Biden is a sinner, we should all feel good about ourselves. Absolutely not. But one thing I expect from the Pope is guidance. I don't want to hear about 0.02% of the population. Why doesn't he reach out to all of the people who were abused by priests? Why doesn't he talk to them? Why doesn't he tell them how sorry he is, even if he does that in private? But welcome them back to the church, because I don't care what he thinks about transgenders. I'm not one, and the largest portion of the population isn't one. So why don't you talk to most of the people who are in the church that want to be a part of the church? Or why don't you talk to the divorced woman who thinks she's not allowed to go to church because the divorced woman is not allowed to receive communion? Why don't you talk to her? So I respect the fact that you are infallible, but only on the doctrines of the church. I don't want to hear anything else. My Sancta Papa, I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me about it. Don't give me any ideas that I don't need to have. God is the ultimate judge. He will judge us all. So get in line, Pope Francis. Get in line with the rest of your flock and understand one thing, that God is the shepherd of his flock. And if one of those sheep is out of the group and is lost, the shepherd will leave the 99 to go and get the one who is lost. It says so in the Bible. And that, my friends, is the Sancta Papa I want. I want the Pope to say that he would do anything for his flock. So I want to thank you for putting up with my rant. It may not be that you're Catholic, so you may not have an interest in that. But if you do have a different point of view, please go to How Can This Happen? Follow me and comment on that, or send me a message. If you think that I'm crazy and I don't know what I'm talking about, I want to know what you think. That's the reason I bring these subjects to you. And I'm going to continue to do it as long as you're willing to listen. And I thank you for listening. And I'll see you next time. So take care and know that How Can This Happen is partly because we've allowed it to. And this is Betsy Bell.